When I was younger, I always thought I was set on what I wanted to be. Little did I know, the older I got, the more options there were. No longer was the decision between being an extreme bike rider, a firefighter, or even the next Picasso. As I moved into the 7th grade, the reality of colleges and careers started setting in, and the fear of the future overwhelmed me, and you can imagine the panic because I believed one decision would decide the rest of my life, but little did I know what was coming. Hi everyone, my name is Audrey Loy, and this year I chose to study marketing. I've always had a deep interest for creativity and analysis, so this was the perfect avenue to combine all of my passions. ISM gave me the outlet to experience a career I already had an interest for, so once I was accepted to join ISM, I already knew it was time to overcome a challenge I've always faced in my life, which is holding back. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "You must do the things you think you cannot do." ISM has been my chance to push myself further than I ever have before. My first chance to do this was by researching topics, and in ISM how it works is you have no limitations to what you can study as long as it pertains to your topic, so having the option to research anything is so interesting but also really stressful because there's so many things I can learn. Throughout the year I've completed many research assessments over various topics, and in the beginning how I started was I compared other similar careers to marketing, and so branding versus marketing or sales versus marketing, so I could really understand the difference. And I got to see the flexibility of the marketing career and how it applies to an array of jobs and industries. One of my first research assessments was over online marketing trends, and this spanned from phone ads to phone apps or even virtual reality marketing, which I thought was really interesting. And it broke down limitations on what marketing was for me, because no longer was it just something you see in the newspaper or something you see on TV or just advertising in general, but it was anything that a customer or someone who has a relationship with the business comes in contact with. Then on October 12th, ISM took a field trip to the University of North Texas, and there I got to participate in 3 classes, which was Marketing Foundations, Consumer Behavior, and Marketing Metrics. So I got to really experience the foundation of marketing, the psychology of marketing, and even the math of marketing. And I got to experience the education behind the career, which is really unconventional. And as high schoolers, we're always worried about the career and we always overlook college, so that was also really interesting. And I got to learn more about marketing in one day than what I could learn by myself. Lastly, for my original work, I chose to study the topic of rebranding. Throughout my other research assessments, I've learned that branding is the key to marketing, but rebranding completely challenges this because it deconstructs the brand. I researched real businesses who rebranded and also factors to consider, and I'll talk more about this later when I go into depth on how this research applied to my original work. Researching topics already pushed me out of my normal surroundings, but ISM really pushed me out of my real boundaries when I walked into informational interviews with professionals I had never met before. As ISM students, we use LinkedIn or any other way to find a professional's email so we can schedule interviews with them. And the process was so nerve-wracking and I had no idea what to expect, but little did I know I'd be saying a 20-minute speech about it by the end of the year. With an inherent passion for volunteering at a young age, walking into ISM, I believed nonprofit was where I needed to be. So as a result, my first interview was with Katie Carnival, the marketing manager at Frisco Family Services. She recently graduated from the University of North Texas last May, and so she really provided good insight on college studies and how to get a job right out of college. But what was really unique is that she had a degree in journalism and not in marketing, but her first job was marketing. And so she gave me a word of advice, which was, where you start is not where you'll end up. And this advice really set a precedent for how I approached ISM for the rest of the year. Next, I interviewed Dee Dee Snyder, the Vice President of Communications at Insight for Living Ministries. In our interview, we got to sit in a meeting room with a whiteboard surrounding the entire room. And I really got to see how one dry erase doodle from 1 month turned into a design months later, and they had like years planned out, so it was really impressive. And what was really interesting about Insight for Living is that their demographic is the older population, so online marketing is not as prevalent as you might assume. And so this really challenged research assessments with online marketing trends because they don't use those at all. It also reaffirmed previous knowledge from any research assessments, because in marketing it's always about the target market, so whoever your demographic is, that's what you adjust your marketing plan to. That same day, I had an interview with Sandy Garrett of Stonebriar Community Church, and I attend Stonebriar regularly, so understanding the church environment wasn't too difficult. But however, I never truly understood how marketing worked at Stonebriar because I didn't even realize I was being marketed to. So the goal of my interview was to not only learn about marketing, but fully understand how it works in an environment I'm already familiar with. During our interview, Ms. Garrett stressed the importance of quality and communication in anything that you do. Of course, there should always be quality to your work, but in any career, you're always communicating with other people and working with other people, and she said that's the most difficult part. My fourth interview was with Liliana Rogers of the Boys and Girls Club of Collin County, and I was able to gain a perspective of a national nonprofit because each of the different locations of the nonprofits work together to build that national brand. And the best part of our interview was getting to bond over DECA from state competition and all the experiences that we do as part of DECA. And DECA is a marketing club I'm part of at school. This connection is really the key to communication, which is something she also talked about during our interview. And most of her time is spent building relationships with donors, whether it be following up with conversations or initiating them. And she really stressed the importance of being people-oriented, whether it be digital or face-to-face. My last interview was with Jill Hurt, the Vice President of Marketing at Pacific Union Financial, who is now my mentor. This was the first interview I had in a corporate environment because previously I had 4 interviews with nonprofits, and I was really able to compare the structure of a corporate environment to a nonprofit environment. And Ms. Hurt broke down the basic types of markets, and that's correspondent, retail, and wholesale. And she really stressed that marketing is not one audience, but many, and each with their own needs. And at the end of our meeting, she brought me around the office and introduced me to people within her team, and they were all so welcoming, and I was really able to gain how marketing is made up of many parts, and I was even introduced to roles I didn't even previously associate with marketing. After completing all 5 interviews and, of course, taking some time to think over it, I decided to ask Ms. Hurt to be my mentor, and she said yes. Throughout the year, I've had 19 total mentor visits where I've got to sit with the team and shadow some of their roles in marketing. I've learned so much about marketing, such as like marketing analytics, social marketing, public relations, web development, search optimization, and the list goes on. Every time I go, I get to participate in a stand-up meeting, so where everyone gets around in a circle, and I get the opportunity to listen to what the team is doing and how what their specific role is contributing to the marketing at Pacific Union Financial. But not only do I get the opportunity to listen, but I also get to participate and share what I've accomplished as an ISM student. My most memorable mentor visit was during winter break, where I got to sit 2 4-hour days compared with my normal mentor visits, which are just 1 hour and once a week. And it was really interesting because I got to see how the team works together throughout the day and also how one day's task can carry over to the next. Aside from the immense knowledge I've gained, the best part about my mentorship was having Ms. Hurt and the whole team invest in me as a marketer and a future professional, and they've really helped me grow as a person, and I'm extremely thankful for all of their support. Next up in the semester was to create an original work. For my original work, I chose to focus on the topic of branding. A topic of discussion at Pacific Union is the potential to rename itself to Lone Pacific, so Ms. Hurt challenged me with the task of evaluating whether or not this change is really needed, so I decided to take this challenge into my original work. With Ms. Hurt's help, I've been able to complete my original work, which is a rebranding campaign and evaluation. To begin, I researched more about Pacific Union than I already knew. So walking in, Pacific Union is a mortgage company, so as a high schooler, I know nothing about mortgage, so that was something that I had to overcome. And so I had to learn about the channels and also more about mortgage and how that works in their consumers. And my mentor visits provided knowledge, but not enough that I could really grasp what was happening. Next up in the process, I read articles about rebranding, and this is what I was talking about in my research assessment. Some were real examples, such as ABC Family and Time Warner Cable, who had just recently rebranded, and other articles were career standards and tips for rebranding. And the purpose of researching was so that when I create my campaign, I know what works and what doesn't work and what people usually do in the industry. Next, Ms. Hurt and the Pacific Union marketing team helped me brainstorm common adjectives used to describe Pacific Union. And with those adjectives, I had help in creating a survey through a program called Serves. And to my surprise, a survey is not simple. So having to create the survey seems really easy because you just put in questions and answers, but every question and every answer choice you have has a lot of thought process into it because someone could misunderstand what you're trying to convey. And also, when you send out the survey through email, they use a software called Silverpop, and so you have to not only design the picture that goes with it, but a header and a subject line, so that way people are willing to click it and also take the survey. And I got to send out this survey to real leads from LendingTree, which was so cool, and leads are potential customers to Pacific Union. Now, only 2 out of 200 people fully completed the survey, and we were a little disappointed by the results, but since there were minimal responses, the survey was deemed inconclusive. However, the efforts were not wasted because one response, when asked to choose what types of loans Loan Pacific sells, selected every single answer choice. So it revealed that the name Loan Pacific was too broad and provided some confusion in what types of products it sells. With this knowledge from my research, I outlined the campaign, which was my objectives and my target market, and how I was going to convey this new rebranding. And I took information from my research so I could produce an optimal rebranding campaign that solved common industry issues. Overall, I learned that a brand wasn't just a color, a logo, or a name, but a value you want your customers to feel and connect with. Also, I understand Pacific Union more deeply as a mortgage company because the whole finance concept seemed so foreign to me before this. My last step in ISM was to develop a final product. From my mentor visits at Pacific Union, I know a common discussion within the mortgage and housing industry is millennials, which are young adults ages 18 to 35. And so I wanted to explore this topic by completing a market analysis and then creating a campaign so that we can target them as customers. Just like my original work, I began with research of the topic, and this time it was millennials. The main points I drew from my research is that millennials are foreign to the housing market as they are just graduating college or they're just getting their first job, so they really don't have enough money to purchase a home yet. And many millennials are held back by student debt and the influence of the 2008 recession because of the recession, they're afraid to invest in a home. From my research, I compiled my information into 2 infographics that I designed, and on the left is a map showing the cities where millennials are taking over the housing market as of 2015. And it was really interesting, not just because of the article, but because I got to plot it out visually, because you can see that they're not just metropolitan, none of them are metropolitan cities, and also 4 of those cities are in Louisiana. Louisiana of all places, I would not assume had the most millennials. On the right is the mortgage process, and that outlines the process. And as a high schooler, the mortgage industry is definitely foreign to me, but creating this infographic helped me understand it from pre-qualification to underwriting and everything in between. And both of these infographics aim to educate millennials, and they convey a specific image visually that deconstructs a rather intimidating process. From my analysis, I discovered that millennials are intimidated by the housing process, as you might assume, and it is essential that mortgage companies are directly marketing to the age group in order to cultivate a secure market for their products. My campaign was based on my research and sought to complete 2 main goals, which were 1, motivate millennials to invest a home, and 2, make the mortgage process more approachable. For my campaign, I outlined details of the mortgage process and the tools available to Pacific Union customers. And for my campaign, I did a video campaign where I summarized each goal of each video, such as identifying the types of mortgages or the process of applying for a mortgage, which I'll go more in depth about later. The main point of these videos is to connect with the viewer and show them that Pacific Union works hard to make mortgage easy for them. Once I knew what I wanted to accomplish, I estimated an overall budget of $2,100, and on my budget I only had 2 things, which was the YouTube ad for the first video and also the Instagram ad, so that way I could rebroadcast the message about the video. And the above budget doesn't include labor costs because all the videos at Pacific Union are made in-house, which is also really cool. To further educate millennials and first-time homebuyers, each of these videos in my online series will follow the major steps surrounding a mortgage process. The first video functions as a trailer and introduces the viewer to watch the series, and the video will be rebroadcasted as an ad on YouTube to connect to more viewers. Deciding to purchase a home is a big step, so after finding a realtor and the perfect home, millennials must prepare their credit history, bank statements, and proof of a stable income. The whole process may seem so overwhelming, so this video will connect with the audience's emotions and uncertainties about getting a home and also investing in a mortgage. A link will be provided at the end of the video to a landing page to contact a loan officer, and this will really allow for tracking of the effectiveness of the campaign, so later on when the process is over we can evaluate how effective this campaign really is in reaching millennials. Pre-approval sets the homebuyer up for a smoother home buying experience, so this video goes over the differences between pre-approval and pre-qualification, and I'll also mention the steps on how to reach that. And entering the home buying world seems so intimidating, especially with the use of industry-specific terminology, so this video goes through each of the major terms used by loan officers and mortgage brokers, so that millennials will better understand what they're getting themselves into. With so many options, they're also overwhelmed with information, so this next video goes through the major loan types and briefly describes them with the minimum requirements, such as VA loans are specifically for veterans. After submitting the necessary paperwork, millennials may be confused on what steps to take next. At times, millennials may be denied a mortgage, so this video reassures the millennial that it happens frequently and they shouldn't be discouraged. Or on the other hand, if they're accepted to take out this mortgage, it should be celebrated and for taking their American dream. And these videos all play to the emotions and fears millennials may have, and it addresses factors that may steer them away while also educating them, which will secure a target market for Pacific Union. Next up, I went to design thumbnails for the YouTube videos and the Instagram ad. An advertisement was needed for Instagram because it rebroadcasted the knowledge about the series and made sure the effort would not be wasted for the videos. Overall, I learned that the process of creating a more in-depth campaign, but this time with a budget, a schedule of events, and I backed it all up with research through my marketing analysis. Also, I learned more about the mortgage process in general. So where to now? It's a long journey ahead, but ISM is the beginning of the start, and I'm excited to see what comes my way. I've not only learned a lot about marketing, but also how to be a professional and an encouraging team member as well. I've gained knowledge, but also memories I'll cherish forever. From the team stand-ups to the people I've met, or even when Miss Hurt and I were proofreading my final product, I've enjoyed every minute. Wherever I may end up and whatever I may be, whether it be a bike rider, a firefighter, or even an artist, or even a marketer, it is the journey that makes it an adventure, not the destination. So I'm glad that this was my ISM journey. Thank you.